the Idries Shah Foundation podcast. Practical Psychology for Today. Featuring the works of Idries Shah, voiced by David Alt. Welcome to the Idries Shah Foundation podcast. In this edition of the podcast, we will hear selections from The Sufis by Idries Shah. This audio has been made available by the Idries Shah Foundation. Fariduddin Attar, the Chemist. A monkey saw a cherry through the clear glass of a bottle, and thought he would take it. Passing his hand into the neck of the bottle, he closed his fist over the cherry. Now he found that he could not withdraw his hand. The hunter who had set this trap now came along. The monkey, impossibly hampered by the bottle, could not run away, and he was caught. At least I have the cherry in my hand, he thought. At that moment the hunter gave him a sharp tap on the elbow. The monkey's hand opened and came out of the bottle. The hunter now had the fruit, the bottle, and the monkey. Book of Amudarya. To abandon something because others have misused it may be the height of folly. The Sufic truth cannot be encompassed in rules and regulations, in formulas and in rituals, but yet it is partially present in all these things. These words are attributed to Fariduddin the Chemist, a great illuminate and author, and an organizer of the Sufis. He died over a century before the birth of Chaucer, in whose works references to Attar's Sufism are to be found. More than 100 years after his death, the foundation of the Order of the Garter showed such striking parallels with his initiatory order that this can hardly be a coincidence. Fariduddin was born near Omar Khayyam's beloved Nishapur, and his father bequeathed him a pharmacy, which is one reason given for his surname and Sufi style Attar, the chemist. Of his life, a great many stories are told, some of them involving miracles, others containing his teachings. He wrote 114 works for the Sufis, the most important of which is undoubtedly the Parliament of the Birds, a forerunner of Pilgrim's Progress. Still a classic of Sufism and Persian literature alike, the Parliament describes the Sufi experiences and is itself based in plan on earlier Sufic quest themes. It unfolds meanings which become perceptible with the Sufic awakening of the mind. The story of Attar's conversion, which the Sufis use to illustrate the need for balance between material and metaphysical things, is given by Daulat Shah in the classic Memoirs of the Poets. It is not accepted as literal reporting, but allegorical. Attar was in his shop one day, among his numerous and varied merchandise, when a wandering Sufi appeared at the door, gazing in with his eyes filled with tears. Fariduddin at once told the man to be gone. "It is not difficult for me," replied the traveller. "I have nothing to carry, nothing but this cloak. But you with your costly drugs, you would do well to consider your own arrangements for going on your way." This impact so profoundly impressed Attar that he renounced his shop and his work and withdrew into a Sufi settlement for a period of religious retreat under the aegis of the master Sheikh Ruknuddin. While a great deal is made of his ascetic practices, he himself maintained the importance of the body, even saying, "The body is not different from the soul, for it is a part of it, and both are a part of the whole." His teachings are embodied not only in his poetical works, but also in the traditional rituals which are believed by Sufis to be a part of them. Reference to this will be made later. It is the sphere where Sufic poetry, teaching and work, amal, coincide. Attar was one of the Sufis most deeply versed in the biographies of the earlier historical Sufis, and his only prose work, Memoirs of the Friends, or Recital of the Saints, is devoted to a collection of these lives. It was on his wanderings to Mecca and elsewhere after he quit the Sufi circle of Ruknuddin that he decided to make the collection. In his old age, Attar was visited by the young Jalaluddin Rumi, and he presented him with one of his books. Rumi made more public the initiatory aspects of the Sufic law which Attar pursued. Later he was to refer to him as his own soul. Attar traversed the 7 cities of love, and we have reached only a single street. Attar died as he had lived, teaching. His last action was deliberately calculated to make a man think for himself. When the barbarians under Genghis Khan invaded Persia in 1220, Attar was seized, by now a man of 110 years of age. One Mongol said, "Do not kill this old man. I will give 1,000 pieces of silver as a ransom for him." Attar told his captor to hold out, for he would get a better price from someone else. A little later, another man offered only a quantity of straw for him. "Sell me for the straw," said Attar, "for that is all I am worth." And he was slain by the infuriated Mongol. Attar's romantic and quest writings have been shown by Garcin de Tassy to resemble the Roman de la Rose, and belong, of course, to the direct Sufic stream of romance teaching which antedates its appearance in Europe. A romance piece which gave rise to later material on a similar Sufic theme was written by Majriti the Cordoban. It is probable that the romance material reached Western Europe through Spain and southern France, rather than through Syria, where the Sufic compositions of this genre were well established. Western scholars who believe that the Grail legend entered Europe through the Crusaders base this assumption only on the Syrian sources. Syria and Andalusia, however, were strongly linked. The transformation of Q into G, Qari al-Muqaddas, Holy Recital for Qari al-Muqaddas, is Hispano-Moorish, not Syrian. De Tassy notes that the Roman de la Rose has analogies with 2 Sufic streams of literature, that of the birds and the flowers, and above all with the Parliament of the Birds of Attar. The exact version which stimulated the versions of the Roman known in Europe is not, of course, available, and it is more than possible that the origin was a verbal one, passed on through Sufi teaching in the widespread Sufic circles of Spain. The Rose of Bakhawali romance in India contains much that throws light upon the Sufic usage of this most dynamic imagery. And the Parliament itself, apart from the fragmentary indications in Chaucer and elsewhere, was translated into French and published in Liège in 1653. It was also translated into Latin in 1678. In the order of Khidr, who is St. George and also Khidr, the patron saint of the Sufis, the hidden guide sometimes thought to be Elias, which exists to this day, passages from the Mantiq ut Tayr, Parliament of the Birds, of Attar are quoted. This is a part of the ceremonial of initiation. The sea was asked why it was dressed in blue, the colour of mourning, and why it became agitated as if fire made it boil. It answered that the blue robe spoke of the sadness of separation from the beloved, that it was the fire of love which made it boil. Yellow, continues the recital, is the colour of gold, the alchemy of the perfected man, who is refined until he is, in a sense, gold. The robe of initiation consists of the Sufi blue mantle, with a hood and a yellow band. Together these 2 colours, when mixed, make green, the colour of initiation and nature, truth and immortality. The Mantique was written about 170 years before the foundation of the mysterious Order of the Garter, which was originally known as the Order of St. George. The Sufi order which Attar is credited with having created, and probably developed, and which certainly carries the tradition of his concentrating, carries out exercise designed to produce and maintain the harmony of the participant with the whole of creation. And it closely resembles the other orders of Sufism, the tariqas. The stages of development of a Sufi, while they may take a different sequence in different individuals, are portrayed in the Parliament of the Birds. The birds, who represent humanity, are called together by the Hoopoe, the Sufi, who proposes that they should start on a quest to find their mysterious king. He is called Simurgh, and he lives in the mountains of Kaf. Each bird, after at first being excited by the prospect of having a king, begins to make excuses as to why he should not himself take part in the journey toward the hidden king. The Hoopoe, after hearing the plea of each, replies with a tale which illustrates the uselessness of preferring what one has or might have to what one should have. The poem is full of Sufi imagery and has to be studied in detail in order to be properly understood. The Ring of Solomon, the nature of Khidr the hidden guide, anecdotes of the ancient sages fill its pages. Eventually, the Hoopoe tells the birds that in the quest they have to traverse 7 valleys. First of all is the Valley of the Quest, where all kinds of perils threaten, and where the pilgrim must renounce desires. Then comes the Valley of Love, the limitless area in which the seeker is completely consumed by a thirst for the beloved. Love is followed by the Valley of Intuitive Knowledge, in which the heart receives directly the illumination of truth and an experience of God. In the Valley of Detachment, the traveller becomes liberated from desires and dependence. In the interchange in which the Hoopoe deals with the nightingale, Attar exposes the uselessness of ecstatics, mystics who follow romance for its own sake, who intoxicate themselves with yearnings, who indulge ecstatic experience, and are out of touch with human life. The passionate nightingale came forward, beside himself with fervour. In each one of his 1,000 varying chirrupings, he gave vent to a different mystery of meaning. He spoke so eloquently of mysteries that all the other birds fell silent. "I know the secrets of love," he said. "Throughout the night I give my love call. I myself teach the secrets, and it is my song which is the lament of the mystic flute, and which the lute wails. It is I who set the rose in motion, and move the hearts of lovers. Continuously I teach new mysteries, each moment new notes of sadness like the waves of the sea. Whoever hears me loses his wits in rapture, contrary to his normal way. When I am long bereft of my love, the rose, I lament unceasingly, and when the rose returns to the world in summer, I open my heart to joy. My secrets are not known to all, but the rose knows them. I think of nothing but the rose. I wish nothing but the ruby rose. To reach the Simurgh, that is beyond me. The love of the rose is enough for the nightingale. It is for me that she flowers. Can the nightingale live but one night without the beloved?" The Hoopoe cried, "O laggard, busy with the mere shape of things, leave off the pleasures of seductive form. The love of the face of the rose has merely driven thorns into your heart. It is your master. However beautiful the rose, the beauty vanishes in a few days. Love for something so perishable can only cause revulsion in the perfected man. If the rose's smile awakens your desire, it is only to hold you ceaselessly in sorrow. It is she who laughs at you each spring, and she does not cry. Leave the rose and the redness." Commenting upon this passage, One teacher remarks that Attar refers not only to the ecstatic who does not take his mysticism further than rapture. He also means the ecstatic's parallel, the person who feels frequent and incomplete love, and who, although deeply affected by it, is not regenerated and altered by it to such an extent that his very being undergoes a change. There is a fire of love which purifies, which is different whenever it occurs, which sears the marrow and makes incandescent the kernel. The ore separates from the matrix, and the perfected man emerges, altered in such a way that every aspect of his life is ennobled. He is not changed in the sense of being different, but he is completed, and this makes him considered powerful of men. Every fibre has been purified, raised to a higher state, vibrates to a higher tune, gives out a more direct, more penetrating note, attracts the affinity in man and woman, is loved more and hated more, partakes of a destiny, a portion, infinitely assured and recognized, indifferent to the things which affected him while he pursued the mere shadow of which this is the substance, however sublime that former experience may have been. This teacher, Adil Alimi, warns that these sentiments will not appeal to all. They will be disbelieved by the materialist, attacked by the theologian, ignored by the romantic, avoided by the shallow, rejected by the ecstatic, be welcomed but misunderstood by the theoretician and imitation Sufi. But, he continues, we must remember kadam ba kadam, step by step. Before you drink the 5th cup, you must have drunk the first 4, each of them delicious. He realizes that things, whether they be old or new, have no importance. Things that have been learned are of no value. The traveller is experiencing everything afresh. He understands the difference between traditionalism, for instance, and the reality of which it is a reflection. The 5th valley is the valley of unification. Now the seeker understands that what seem to him to be different things and ideas are, in actuality, only one. In the valley of astonishment, the traveller finds bewilderment and also love. He no longer understands knowledge in the same way as formerly. Something which is called love replaces it. The 7th and last valley is that of death. This is where the seeker understands the mystery, the paradox, of how an individual drop can be merged with an ocean and still remain meaningful. He has found his place. Fariduddin Attar's pen name is Attar the chemist or perfumer. While most historians assume that he adopted this descriptive word because his father had a pharmacy, the Sufi tradition is that Attar conceals an initiatory meaning. If we take the standard method of decoding by the Abjad system, known to almost every person literate in Arabic and Persian, the letters can be substituted for the following figures. A equals 70, Ta equals 9, Ta equals 9, Alif equals 1, Ra equals 200. The letters must be arranged in accordance with conventional Semitic orthography as above. The Hisab el-Jamal, or standard rearrangement of letters and numbers, is the simplest form of the use of the Abjad used in very many poetic names. This rearrangement requires the totaling of the values of the letters, 70 plus 9 plus 9 plus 1 plus 200, giving a total of 289. In order to provide a fresh, hidden 3-letter root, we have, again by standard procedure, to resplit the total in order of hundreds, tens, and units thus. 289 is 200, 80, and 9. These 3 figures are recoded: 200 equals R, 80 equals F, 9 equals T. Now we look up in a dictionary the words which correspond with any arrangement of these three letters. In Arabic dictionaries, words are always listed in accordance with their basic, usually three-letter, roots, so this makes the task easy. The three letters may be grouped only in the following ways: RFT, RTF, FRT, FTR, and TFR. The only triliteral root which is concerned with religion, interior or initiatory meanings is the FTR root. Attar is an encipherment of the concept of FTR, which is the message about his teaching that Fariduddin Attar is transmitting. Attar was one of the greatest Sufi teachers. Before we look at the implications of the FTR root in Arabic, we can recapitulate his ideas. Sufism is a form of thinking clothed by Attar and his followers, including Rumi, his disciple, in a religious format. It is concerned with growth and the theme of the organic evolution of mankind. Its accomplishment is associated with the dawn after the dark, the breaking of bread after a fast, and intensive physical and mental action, unpremeditated, as a response to intuitive impulses. Does the root FTR contain 1. Religious associations, 2. Connections between Christianity and Islam, because the Sufis claim to be Muslims but also esoteric Christians, 3. The idea of speed or unpremeditated action, 4. Humility, dervishism, 5. A strong impact of ideas or movement as applied in dervish schools for training Sufis. 6. The grape, Sufi poetic analogy for interior experience. 7. Something which forces its way out of the bosom of nature. Every one of these ideas is contained in the Arabic words derived from the FTR root, forming a mosaic of the Sufi existence. We may now examine the root and its use. Fatah, to cleave, to split a thing, to find out, to begin, to create a thing, God. Futr, a mushroom, that which forces its way upward by cleaving. Fatara, to breakfast, to break a fast. Tafatar, to split or crack. Eid al-Fitr, the feast of the breaking of the fast. Fitrat, natural disposition, religious feeling, the religion of Islam, submission to the divine will. Fatir, unleavened bread, unpremeditated or precipitate action, haste. Fatira, a small flat cake such as is used as a sacrament. Fatir, the creator. Futeri, a worthless man, empty, blunt. Futar, a blunt thing like a blunt sword. Attar is traditionally associated with having passed down the special Sufi exercise called halt, the exercise of the pause of time. This takes place when the teacher, at a special time, calls for a complete freezing of movement by the students. During this pause of time, he projects his barakah upon the people. Suddenly suspending all physical action is considered to leave the consciousness open to the receipt of special mental developments, whose power is drained by muscular movement. FTR, strangely enough, is in the Sufi word list, developed into QMM. This, again encoded by the same abjad notation, produces the word kif, the divine pause. This pause is the name given to the halt exercise, which is only carried out by a teaching master. That the FTR root means, in a secondary sense, the mushroom, gives rise to an interesting speculation. Largely due to the initiative of Mr. R. Gordon Wasson, it has been determined that in ancient times there was, and still is in surprisingly many places, a widespread ecstatic cult based upon the eating of hallucinogenic mushrooms. Is the FTR root connected with a mushroom cult? It is, in one sense, but not the sense which one would immediately assume. FTR is a mushroom, but not a hallucinogenic one. We have two sources for asserting this. In the first place, the Arabic word for a hallucinogenic fungus is from the root GHRB. Words derived from the GHRB root indicate a knowledge of the strange influence of hallucinogenic fungi, while the FTR words do not. Garaba, to go away, depart, have an eye tumour. Garab, to forsake one's country, to live abroad. Gurban, the setting of a star, to be absent or remote. Garub, to be obscure, something not well understood, to become a stranger. Garab, to go west. Agharab, to do or say strange or immoderate things, to laugh immoderately, to run swiftly, to go far into the country. Istagrab, to find a thing strange, extraordinary, also to laugh to excess. Garb, edge of a sword, tears, etc. Esh el Gurab, toadstool, literally bread of the crow, of the intricate, of the darkness, of the strangeness. The second interesting evidence which indicates that the Sufis used the FTR root to mean the interior experience and not one which was induced by chemical means is contained in a passage from the words of the aptly named Mast Kalandar, literally intoxicated dervish, who undoubtedly comments upon a belief that hallucinogenic mushrooms might provide a mystical experience, but claims that this is incorrect. First, we can look at a literal rendering of the text. The Creator, from the spreading of fervour and the essence of religious feeling, thus ordered the juice of the grape for the breakfasting of the lovers, the Sufis, and in the sacramental bread of the half-understanders he left a symbol. And this too, learn and know, that the Sufi illuminate is far from the crack and fissure of deception which is distortion, and went near to that other initiatory ecstatic feeling, and was far from mushrooming, and mushrooms of madness was far. And the breakfasting was of the breakfast of truths on the way of uncrackedness. Finally, after the spreading, vine and grape came, and after that its juice made wine, and supping after abstinence, the complete man was made fashioned strangely by the blunt scimitar. But this bread is not from what they say, neither from beneath the tree. Truly the truth of creation is discovered, and ecstasy may be solely known in this hiddenness of the bread of the hungry and thirsty. His drink is after his food, the Creator displays as the opener. This remarkable passage has been considered to be the ravings of a madman. Sheikh Mahouji of the Azamiya Sufis interprets it in a page from his Durud, or recitals. There is a certain sensation which is true fervour, and which is associated with love. This stems from ancient origins, and is necessary to mankind. Signs of it remain in circles other than those of the Sufis, but now only in symbolic form, as they have the cross, but we have Jesus. The seeker must remember that there are similitudes of feeling which are illusory and which are like madness, but not the madness which the Sufi means when he talks of madness, as the author has used to describe himself, Mast Kalandar. It is from this source, the origin of what we call a wine, from a grape, from a vine, the product of splitting and spreading, that comes the true illumination. After a period of abstinence from wine or bread, the detachment from attachment, this force which is a form of opening comes about. This is the nutrient which is not a food in any sense of being a known physical thing. The original passage, which is in more or less literary Persian, gives us the explanation of what it is that the mad dervish is trying to do. It harps upon a single word root, and that root is FTR. No translation could possibly recreate this poetic fact, because in translation the root cannot be maintained. In English, since the derivation of split, cake, religious experience, and so on are from different stems, we cannot maintain the almost eerie sense of carrying on one single sound. This is an example. Ya barada, fatir as tafatari, fitrat widati fitrat. In the whole passage of 111 words, the word derived from the three-letter root FTR occurs no less than 23 times. And many of these usages of the words, though not incorrect, are so unusual, because there is so often a conventional word more apt in such a context, that there is absolutely no doubt that a message is being conveyed to the effect that chemical hallucinogens derived from fungi provide an undeniable but counterfeit experience. This podcast is copyright 2016, the Idries Shah Foundation.